Hey guys, welcome back to, that was weird. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of What the Smut Book Review. Hi, my name is Candace and I'm your host. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode. Babbles off into space. In today's video, I'm gonna try to restrain myself, but it's gonna be so hard. It's gonna be so hard because I am so hyped to do this. I'm not hyped to do this video, but I am hyped about the book, and I am hyped about sharing this book with the world. And by the world, I mean the 12 people that watch my videos every week. In today's video, we're going to be continuing down our Sophie Lark rabbit hole with the second book number 2, in her Brutal Birthrights series. And it is called Stolen Heir. Hey boy, what you doing? Okay. I said I was gonna tone it down. As you may have noticed, I'm slightly unstable at the best of times. Introduce me to a book like this, and I just go completely off the reservation. I have been hyping this book up on Instagram for days, for weeks, for like 2 weeks. I know, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of time. But I just discovered this author. I've seen her books suggested literally everywhere. And I'm so overwhelmed all the time with book suggestions and book recs. And if this rabbit moves one more time, I'm gonna make a pelt. No, I'm not. PETA? No, I'm not. But I'm so overwhelmed all the time with book recs that it's like, where do I begin? So, in an attempt to keep this channel varied, I can't stick to one author for a long duration of time, which is the reason why after I finished reading Penelope Douglas's Devil's Night series, I did not immediately jump into her Falling Away series, because if I'm not mistaken, there's a good number of books in that series, and the next 4 months would be, you might as well change the name of my channel to the Penelope Douglas channel, because between Devil's Night, Punk 57, Credence, Misconduct, I was already halfway there, right? So I started trying to read other authors. I took a little PD break, read other authors, Tilly Cole, who I really like. Blank much? Some others that I forget now. Anyway, no. Ivy Smoke. Okay, I read a book by Ivy Smoke. And then I was like, okay, I see all these people sharing and liking and talking about Sophie Lark. I don't know who Sophie Lark is. I'm gonna go stalk her page a little bit. So I did. And I was like, okay. There's several of her book covers like jumped out at me immediately, and I was just like, hey boy, hey. So this series, which is contemporary mafia style romance, I was like, okay, I've done mafia, I can do mafia. Okay. So I read the first book. So I read the first book. It kicked off like a cannon. Like, shoot me into the stratosphere, because I'm now officially in Sophie Lark land. That's it. So I read the first book, and it was so good. And then I was like, immediately. And if you know anything about me, you'll know that if I really shouldn't, I won't say I won't because I do, but I really shouldn't start a book until I've recorded the review for the last book I read. Because if I do, my brain is on like auto delete. So as I absorb new information, I delete the old information. If I haven't recorded the review, that information is gone. When I sit down to record, I'm going to be doing this. What the fuck? What's the character's name? What's the plot of the book? That's me. Okay. I read the first book. My head hurts all the time. So I didn't get to record for the first book. But I needed to read the second one. And I was like, okay, all right. Well, it's a series. They're in the same realm. Like, they're in the same, it's all in the family, right? So I started the second book. Process be damned. I started the second book. This one. You guys, we're gonna get into it because, okay, 10 minutes in and I haven't said fuck all about the details of this book. Okay. I'm gripping it so tightly because I never want to let it go. Okay. According to Amazon, this book has 430 pages. Her last book had like 350 something, I think, like 356. Okay. 430. And I've got 413 in this physical book. Amazon. I would have loved another 27? 17? Fuck. I would have loved more pages of this book in particular. So if you're going to promise me 430, you better give me 430, because I only got 413 and I'm pissed off about it. These books in this series are free to read with Kindle Unlimited. If you don't know what Kindle Unlimited is, Google is free also. Go look it up. I've talked about it so many times. I can't waste time in this video talking about Kindle Unlimited. If you want to buy this book for your Kindle, it's $4.99. If you want this gorgeous, stunning, suede-y feeling cover of this trade paperback right here, you can get that for $14.99. $14.99 is a pretty fucking good deal for a trade paperback, especially one that's this big. I want to say I've gotten trade paperbacks that are smaller than this. They're like in between like this and a mass market. So this is like pretty hefty, but I don't care. I started reading this book before I was 30% into the book. I had already ordered the trade paperback from Amazon. That's how in it to win it I was. If I tell you, since I finished this book, I have been bordering on an unhealthy obsession. Okay. So, I will read you guys the blurb. And then I'm going to put this down because it's literally, my arms are going to fall off. I'll read you guys the blurb. And then we're going to get into it because, okay. So, it says, there's like a tagline, like a little, like in bold, right? They murdered my father, so I stole their daughter. Kidnapping much? Yeah, but give it to me. She's my captive, my little ballerina who dances only for me. Nessa is sweet and innocent. She doesn't deserve any of this, but that's how our world works. The wolves eat the lambs, no matter how gentle they may be. I'll use her to get my revenge, unless I give in to my hunger first. I know I do like some version of that every time I finish reading a blurb, but that one was particularly scary, and I'm sorry for that. Now, there's like an author note at the bottom of this on Amazon, and it says the Lark Notes. And then she says, "Oh, Mikolaj, my secret book boyfriend." Me too, girl, me too. He's dark and moody, and he lives in a haunted mansion. I had some real gothic Beauty and the Beast vibes writing this one. Nessa is my little ballerina belle, smart and creative and kind, the only person who could melt Miko's frozen heart. And then it says dash Sophie. Okay. There's also Stolen Heir is the dark and gothic second act of the Brutal Birthrights series. It's a standalone enemy. It's a standalone enemies to lovers romance, complete with HEA and no cliffhangers. It contains blazing hot bedroom scenes for mature readers only. Okay, one thing I want to point out really quick, and I know I go off on tangents all the time, so will it be one thing? Probably not. The author puts some version of this little note thing at the bottom of all of her blurbs on Amazon, where it says that it is a complete HEA, no cliffhangers. Thank you. Because I can't tell you the number of times that I have become so emotionally invested in a book for something terrible to happen at the end and one of my characters to die. Or like something happens and they don't end up You're not writing a romance novel if there's no HEA. That's my stance, and I'm sticking to it. If you give me a romance novel, did you hear my knuckle crack? Arthritis. If you give me a romance novel with a terrible ending that's not happily ever after, I will reach through this phone and I will choke the life from your body. I tend to steer clear. I don't hate, but I tend to steer clear of books that continue with the same couple over multiple books. So they get an HEA eventually, but it's like happy for now. What, HFN? No. I don't hate those. If it's good enough, I will read it. But that's like a fucking investment for me. So much time. So much real life neglected in favor of this book, only to get to the end for you to tell me that there's a cliffhanger, the next book comes out in 6 months, and it's about the same fucking couple. No. Like I said, unless it's something phenomenal, I don't want that either. I want a book that is 300 or 400 pages. I don't mind a little bit more if it's a good book. That is about a particular set of people, and at the end of that, their story is done. If it's part of a series, I expect the next book to be about other people. That's just me. Everybody likes what they like, that's fine. That's just me. Okay, so keeping that in mind with Rex too, because people recommend books to me all the time, and then I'll look at it and I'll be like, oh, this whole series is about the same people. That's like 5,000 pages I gotta read to get HEA. No, I want instant gratification. Okay, I'm just saying. So I appreciate that this has an HEA and that there's no cliffhanger and that the author tells us that because if you lure me into a trap, I will find you. Okay, so 17 minutes are gone and I haven't even started the, okay. Oh God, all right. So the two main characters for this book are Nessa Griffin and Mikolaj Wilk. If you have read the first book in this series, you have already met Nessa. Kind of. She's there, she's kind of in the background. She's the youngest Griffin sibling. Callum is the oldest. There's a middle sister, and Nessa is the youngest. Nessa is the least involved in her family when it comes to her family's shady dealings. But her father is the current Irish mob boss of Chicago. Her family and the Gallo family, which was introduced in book 1, are now kind of related to each other by marriage. Callum married their youngest daughter, Ada. So, Nessa, in the first book, there was a scene where they were celebrating Nessa's 19th birthday, but you don't really see much interaction with Nessa herself throughout that book. There's like little snippets and bits and pieces where she's like befriending Ada, but it doesn't really delve too much into her story, her background. So she is 19. She 19 or 20? She's 19 or 20? Fuck, I can't remember. Anyway, she is taking classes. She's a college student. She's taking classes at is it Loyola something, and she's essentially your typical college student. She comes from a family of mobsters, but she is not involved in that portion of like the lifestyle. Like she knows, she has her family, she knows what her family does, but she's not personally involved in anything that they do illegally, right? She's also a ballet dancer. She has danced ballet her whole life. She has even helped choreograph some dances for a show that the local theater thing is putting on. The director of that show is a piece of shit and doesn't put her name in the credits in the program for the dances that she choreographed. She gets upset about it. So we're gonna circle back around to that. But so if you have read the first book, you will know that there was initially the Griffins and the Gallows were like enemies, mortal enemies. Now they are in line together against kind of like an interloper of mafia, which is the Polish mafia. So you have the Italians and the Irish who are now in alliance with each other. There was a Polish mob boss who was trying to weasel his way in during the first book. He was killed at the end of the first book, but he had 2 adoptive sons who were basically, one of them inherited his, or took over for him when he died. That son was Mikolaj. Miko is a very complicated character. He's so damaged and delicious and dangerous and pushes all my buttons. Okay, so the beginning of the book starts out with Miko at the age of 15, 16, something like that. He's living in Poland. I think it's in Warsaw. With his twin sister. They have a father who's like elderly and kind of decrepit and used to be able to work to support them, and now he can't. So he's kind of just there. It doesn't really get into his deal much. Like, he's just like in a back room somewhere, not, you know what I mean? The main focus of that scene is focusing in on his relationship with his sister, Anna. Like I said, they're twins. They're very close. One day, he comes home. They're living in a very shitty apartment. Very decrepit, very, like, grody. One day he comes home, and he sees Anna's school bag by the door. And he's like, that's weird. What's going on? And he goes towards the back of the apartment, and he hears the shower running. So he thinks that there's something wrong, and he knocks and doesn't get an answer, and he hears her crying on the other side of the door, so he busts in the door, and he finds her there basically covered in bruises. Her shirt is ripped. She's crying hysterically. She's very distraught. And it turns out that she has been attacked and sexually assaulted by 3 of the local Polish mafia, like the Polish bratva, like 3 of their little gangster henchmen. He loses it. He goes to a pawn. He leaves her there and is like, I'm going to take care of this. I'll be right back. He leaves her there. He goes down to a pawn shop that's down the street, takes all of his money that he's been saving to get them a new place to live, and to like put her through college, and he goes and buys a gun and ammo from a very shady pawn shop owner. He comes back. He hears nothing. It's silent now. He doesn't hear Anna crying anymore. He goes into the bathroom, and he finds her in the bathtub, and she's dead. She's basically slit her wrists. She's killed herself. From that point on, he becomes essentially like a machine. All of his emotions are deadened. He describes it as like his heart essentially stops beating on that day, and nothing touches. He has no emotions for anything after that. He goes on a rampage. He stalks and kills 2 of the 3 guys. He's going after the 3rd guy and gets lured into a trap where he's basically accosted by the guy. At the last minute, when he's sure he's about to die, or when he's like been outnumbered, someone interrupts them. It turns out to be this guy Zarjak, which is I'm sure I'm butchering that name, but I can't do an accent to save my life. So he is essentially the boss, the big boss of the guys that Miko has killed and was attempting to kill this last guy. So he asks him, like, what you're the one that's killed 2 of my men. And Miko's like, yeah. So he doesn't give a fuck. And he's like, why? So he tells him why. And Zarjak just basically shoots the 3rd guy in the face, and he's dead. And at first Miko's like, I wanted to kill him myself with my bare hands, so I feel cheated. But he also thinks, okay, well, he killed him, and now he's gonna kill me because it's my turn, and I've fucked him over. I've killed 2 of his dudes, so no. Zarjak essentially takes him in under his wing and raises him as his like adoptive son and heir, because he has no kids, like legitimate kids anyway. Later on, he adopts another boy that Miko helped save, whose name is Jonas. So he now has 2 adoptive sons. Fast forward 10 years. Zarzak has just been killed. Miko is now the head of the Polish mafia in Chicago and hellbent on revenge against the Gallows and the Griffins. So he hatches a plan that he's going to kidnap Nessa Griffin, and he's going to basically extort them for money, all the money that he can get. He's going to systematically destroy both families. He's going to have, he has Dante arrested, Dante Gallo. He has him arrested on trumped up charges, frames him for murder, and just, he's just going ham on these 2 families. He abducts Nessa. He takes her back to his fortress, and it is legitimately a fortress. It's like a castle. She describes it as like a mansion, but it also has it's very eerie and very derelict, and it has massive gardens, and at first Nessa doesn't know where she is. She doesn't realize that she's right outside of Chicago. She's like, I've been taken to God knows where. I was drugged, and I don't remember anything. Immediately, when it started describing the areas of the house where she was allowed to go, he didn't lock her in her room. He would lock her in at night, but during the day, he wouldn't lock her in her room. She would have free reign of the grounds, the garden, and everything, and she could go anywhere she wanted, except the West Wing. And immediately, I read that, and I was just like, what? Okay, keeping in mind, I don't do any fucking research. So, of course, why would I read this blurb before why? I did not see this bit at the bottom until literally I just read it to you just now. I copied and pasted from Amazon to do my deed sheet and everything, and I did not read that bottom part where it said that she had Beauty and the Beast vibes while reading this. I just picked up on those vibes while reading it. And I was like, oh my God. And I think at one point I was about 40%, 30% into the book. And I went on Instagram on my stories and I was just like, it's fucking Beauty and the Beast. So, Miko is at first very volatile and very aggressive and very hostile towards Nessa. He is very unfeeling, very cold and emotionless. And Nessa is sweet and innocent and childlike, and you can just tell that she's been extremely sheltered her whole life, but she's very intelligent and she knows everything that goes on around her. She just doesn't involve herself in anything that she doesn't want to be involved in. So she sees everything that's happening in the house, and she gets to know a few of his henchmen that work for him, and she befriends Jonas's cousin, who's their housekeeper. She befriends her, and Nessa is very proficient with languages, so she learns. She basically teaches herself just by asking the housekeeper to say random words in Polish, and then she finds a few books in the library that are written in both English and Polish, and she uses them side by side to basically teach herself Polish so that she can understand them when they talk about her, like around her. She doesn't tell them that she's done this. It does come out later, inadvertently. She lets slip that she understands what he's saying. But essentially over the course of the book, he's making moves, making alliances with the Russians, doing all of these things. He like cuts off a lock of her hair and sends it to her parents, or sends it to Callum, and is like, you're gonna pay me however many dollars, or the next thing is gonna be a finger, and then after that is gonna be, and he's just gonna cut random body parts off of her until finally he ships them her head. Like, these are the threats he makes. During the time that he has Nessa in the house, he tells his men not to touch her. Nobody's allowed to touch her. While she's being kept there, which she stays there for over a month, like she's there for a hot minute. And while she's being kept there, he's systematically taking chunks out of the gallows and the griffins. He's just doing little things to basically tear them apart, tear them down. Nessa is bored. She's like, what? She's like, I'm stuck here. There's no TV. There's no internet. You won't let me have a phone. You won't let me have a laptop. There's nothing to do. So, of course, her being a dancer, she misses dancing. She used to dance every day. She clears out a room, pushes all the furniture out of the way, and she turns it into like a makeshift studio. And she starts dancing. And while she's dancing, she starts choreographing her own ballet based on like Beauty and the Beast. And the entire house is, with the exception of like the bathroom, because he doesn't like want to spy on her when she's on the toilet. That's fucking weird. The entire house is wired with cameras. And he watches her. And at one point she sneaks into the West Wing, and he catches her there going through his books and things. He has a bunch of books that he saved that were Anna's. And he catches her looking at those books, and he goes into a rage. She ends up inadvertently destroying one of the books, which just sets him off further. So they have he chases her out of the West Wing, which again, hello, Beauty and the Beast. Every time there was a similarity between Beauty and the Beast and this couple, I got more and more pulled into the story, because I fucking love Beauty and the Beast. I don't know if you can tell. I fucking love Beauty and the Beast. So she's dancing every day. He's watching her. He's becoming increasingly infatuated with her. They have a few little run-ins with each other. And they just slowly become enamored with each other. The initial plan was for him to extort all of the money he could out of the Griffins, and then kill Nessa. She was meant to die anyway. But now he's come to the realization that he can't. And he starts formulating like a plan B in his head, where he thinks maybe it would be more prudent to form a marriage alliance with the Griffins, because he knows that while he can go to war with them and the gallows, even with the Russians backing him, there will be a shit ton of bloodshed, and he's not 100% sure that he can win that war. He just wanted to start it because of his adoptive father and the honor that he felt that he needed to, avenge his death or whatever. But now he can't he can't reconcile himself with the idea of killing Nessa or hurting her in any way. Towards the end of the book, push comes to shove, and he asks her, he sits her down, and he asks her, would you want, if you could leave, would you leave? Or would you want to stay? And she's like, she thinks about it for a minute, and then she realizes that she's in love with him. And she's like, I would stay. I want to stay. I would like to marry you. That's what he says. He's like, she says, would you mean like marriage? Like, you want to marry me? And he's like, yes. No hesitation. Yes. And she's like, yes. And so the next day, he gets into a big argument with Jonas and a few of his other men. And they don't like the idea of changing the plan to not kill Nessa and to instead marry her and let that be your act of revenge that you kidnapped and now you're gonna marry the Griffin's daughter. They don't like that. So, in the midst of fighting with them, he tells her to go home. He says he's gonna have one of his trusted men, which is really his only trusted man, drive her home. And she doesn't understand. She's like, did I do something wrong? Why are you trying to get rid of me? And he's like, I want you to go home, and I want you to think about this. And then I want the opportunity to approach your parents and tell them I want to marry you and broker an alliance that way instead of forcing you into it, because he doesn't know if once she's free, if she will genuinely want to come back to him. And again, simile between this, I messaged Sophie Lark on Instagram, and I was like, well, we've reached the point in our fairy tale when the beast lets Belle go, and now his men are going to turn on him. And that's exactly what happens. He sends her off. She says, I will come back. Don't worry, I still want to marry you, don't worry. He doesn't know, he's not 100% sure, but he's letting her go because it's what's good for her. And he knows that now his heart is like in it. And the guy is almost, I forget his name, what's his name, Marcel? Is driving her home. And she asks him, they're almost back to her house, and she asks him, what were those guys doing there walking through the back garden? Because from the time that she came into the house, none of his men were allowed in the house or to come to the house, aside from his brother Jonas, his trusted right hand, and like one or two other guards. So she sees like a bouncer or bartender or something from one of his clubs on the grounds with some of his other guards. And so she asks the driver, his like number two. She says, why were they at the house? And he kind of pulls like a face, like, I don't know. He didn't say anything to me about that, about having people over at the house. And she gets like a bad feeling. And she's like, stop the car. Turn the car around. And the guy's like, what? You're acting crazy. Like, what do you mean? And she's like, stop the car, take me back, or at least call him and make sure everything's okay, because I have a bad feeling that something's happening. So he humors her and he says, I'll call him. He calls him. After the 6th or 7th ring and it doesn't pick up, nobody picks up, he gets like another face and he turns the car around and he starts driving back. They get back to the house just in time to basically save him from all of the other guards, and as well as Jonas, basically like Julius Caesaring him to death. They basically stab him in the back repeatedly. So Marcel basically pulls a gun and basically breaks up the fight, the brutal stabbing of Miko. The housekeeper, she also attempts to save Miko's life. Before they get there, she tries to intercede, and at one point, I think when Marcel arrives, he sees one of the men choking her to death, and he loses his fucking mind because they have secret crushes on each other, which is another thing that's very cute in the book. So he essentially wounds several of the men. They make their escape. These traitors, these fucking Judases. And yeah, so he's lost a lot of blood. He's essentially dying. He's bleeding out. They managed to get him into the car, and Marcel takes him to one of their like underground doctors to work on, like an very old, crotchety, bespectacled doctor, arthritic doctor, who patches him up, saves his life. On the way to the doctor, they give like a makeshift blood infusion from Nessa to Miko, which is really like the only thing that really saves him, because he had lost so much blood that he may not have even made it to the doctor. They go to the doctor. The doctor patches him up, and they devise a plan. The plan is to hand Nessa back over to Callum Griffin, her brother. But first, he is going to get Dante out of jail. He goes and gets Dante out of jail, maims the crooked cop who put him there in the first place, who was on his payroll, maims him to make it look like he was accosted and during a prisoner transfer, and takes Dante. He tells Dante, listen, I want to be with Nessa, obviously. I'm sorry I put you in prison, but I need your help. And they come up with a plan to basically take Marcel, will take Dante to Jonas as like a peace offering, and be like, I want in. Because Jonas is walking around now all willy-nilly thinking that Miko is dead, because he leaves him for dead on the ground, close to bleeding out. Miko is obviously not dead. Jonas thinks he's dead, so Jonas thinks he's now head honcho. So Marcel is going to walk into the lion's den, which in this case is like a club, or like a strip club, is going to walk into the lion's den with a handcuffed Dante Gallo as an olive branch to get back in Jonas's good graces. It basically, the ruse is, well, Miko's dead. Who am I going to work for if not for you? Let me back into this circle. Here's Dante Gallo as like a trade-off or whatever. So they do that with Sebastian, Nero, which is Ada's other brothers, and Miko hiding in the wings, like guns blazing, like with guns. They're gonna take him out. So that happens. All hell breaks loose. At first, Jonas is like, oh yeah, you brought Dante Gallo. Okay, cool. Like, okay, cool, Marcel, you're back in. And then essentially Miko reveals himself to not be dead. The men one guard, Andre, who backed Jonas's play at Miko, gets offed. The few other guards who were there, who were just living it up, who weren't really told what happened, now they're confused because they're like, what the fuck? I thought you said he had died. He didn't say how he died. He didn't say, oh, we betrayed him. But they knew he was dead. So essentially all hell breaks loose. Jonas, Andre, and even I think some of the other guards get popped. Jonas gets his comeuppance because that fucker had to go. Like, what a slimy, sleazeball piece of shit. So Miko is still wounded, but Dante is out of jail. All the other Gallo children are fine. Nessa is fine. He goes back to the Griffins, and he basically says, like, she runs out to meet him, and she's like, oh my God, I'm so glad you're okay. And her parents are like, what the fuck? Get away from him. And she's like, no, I love him. I want to be with him. And they're like, fuck no, there's no way. And Miko basically goes to them hat in hand, and says, like, I love your daughter, and I'll wait as long as it takes. She can stay here, since obviously you don't want her staying with me, until you feel comfortable enough to give me her hand in marriage. I want to marry her. At first the parents are like, okay, we're gonna barely tolerate you, basically. Fast forward a little bit. Nessa is now back at the theater. She has taken her fully choreographed show, and she has created it at the theater, like adapted it to the theater setting, and it's opening night of her ballet. By the way, Miko low-key beats the crap out of this guy, the director guy, and was like, don't you ever fucking disrespect her again. Next time, you better make it up to her somehow. Figure it out. So naturally, when she comes back and she's like, I have this ballet I've created, I want it. He's like, the guy's like on board, like, oh, I'll help you direct it. Oh, whatever you want, Nessa. Anything you want, Nessa, because he's fucking shitting himself. So it's opening night of her ballet, and Miko is in the audience sitting next to her parents. And while he's watching Nessa dance, her parents are watching him, and they realize that he's legit, that he really loves her. And Nessa's mother gives him her mother's engagement ring. And later on, after the show, he proposes to Nessa, and he says, like, they gave me the blessing. Come live with me, come live with me and be my love, and all I forget the words of that poem, but and they lived happily ever after. And I died inside, but like in such a good way. Oh God. When I finished this book, I felt so bereft. I felt hollow and empty, like a piece of my soul had been sucked out. It was so good. And I literally, like, I was talking to one of my Bookstagram friends, and I was like, she's like, was it good? And the only thing I could say was, this book had no flaws. No flaws. I loved it, cover to cover. Everything about it. The plot, the characters, the story development, the writing style. It alternates POVs from chapter to chapter between the two main characters. It was flawless. Okay, that's all I can say. That's all I can say. For the rating for this book, I gave it a 10 out of 10. And I don't ever do that. So, now you know. Would I recommend this book to anyone? Fucking of course I would. Obviously. Would I recommend this series to anyone? Fuck yes, I would. Obviously. I have already started book 3, which is Nero's story. He's like the Gallo bad boy, arsonist, like leather jacket wearing. So yeah. I think that's pretty much it. I think I'm done. I lost a piece of my soul when I finished the book. I've now lost another piece of my soul reviewing the book. Because I've relived all the trauma that I felt while reading this book. And it's just, I can't. So, if you enjoyed this video, if you like me and you like my channel, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. If you do subscribe, make sure you hit the bell so you get notifications when I upload a new video. I upload at least once a week, usually on Thursdays. If you would like, you can follow me on social media. I'm very present on my Facebook group and Instagram. I do also have a Twitter that I forget exists, so take that with a grain of salt. But I am on Instagram literally all day and literally all night. So, if you would like to find me, you can find me on Instagram. I really thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really thank you so much for sticking with me. I can't wait to get further into this series. Side note to Sophie Lark. I'm going to stalk you so hardcore. Not like fapping it outside your house in the bushes hardcore, but like online hardcore. Like, not creepy hardcore. Just a little bit creepy hardcore. Anyway, I thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. I love you so much. Bye. Not bothered, tale as old as time, hot to say the least. What a smutty book, bitch, you got me hooked. Beauty and the Beast. Okay, I'm gonna stop now because I know that scared you. That's okay. Fat arms, fat arms. Okay. There's no volume up in here. Oh, there's no volume. It's gone. There's nothing there. Okay. I was eating tacos. Make sure I don't have any lettuce at my teeth. Something's got to be done. Something's got to be done. I can't. Okay. Meltdown commencing in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Get off my fucking face. Okay. We're gonna go because I don't have time. I could sit here and fuck with my hair all day. Okay. Must remain chill. Must remain chill. Bring it down. Bring it down. Bring it down. Okay. So, 17 minutes gone. The middle sister is, the hell's her name? Row something. What the fuck is her name? What the fuck is her name? Anyway, and it turns out to be this guy, Varjak. Zarjak. What the fuck is it? Zarjak. Did I forget anything? Of course I did. I don't remember. I literally, at the very top, I wrote, it's like Beauty and the Beast. Before I knew that it was like Beauty and the Beast. That was the point. God, I'm so tired now. I have to go put my child to bed. But first. Okay. I don't know why I feel like my ring light just got really bright. And it wasn't bright before. Is that weird? That's weird. Okay. I wrote Stockholm Syndrome and put like a big star next to it. But it wasn't Stockholm Syndrome. It was true love. And I will fight. I will throw hands at anyone who says differently. Anyone, I can't wait. I won't do it now because I'm not deep enough into her work. But once I get deep enough into her work, then I can justify doing a 5-star rant for your 1-star review video for Sophie Lark. I will do it. And I can't wait to drag those motherfuckers who have the audacity to put a 1-star review next to a Sophie Lark book. I will come for you. You've been put on notice. Don't do it.